Welcome to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas. Here you'll find our family as we strive to live a life that pleases the Lord. We do our best to make the most out of what we've been given, so we'd like to invite you to come along and join us on our journey.
Good morning, y'all, and welcome back to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas, and I thank you for being with me today. So today, the talk of the day is going to be about my goats. I want to tell you a little story before we get started, and then I'm going to share a recipe with you. But, me being me, I like to tell a little story to begin with. So growing up, my Papa, which was my dad's dad, my Papa Fred, he had animals around all the time. All the time. He was always bartering, trading animals back and forth with people. And a lot of times he had goats. And sometimes those goats were for meat. Sometimes he had some for milk. Sometimes he had some for just brush clearing. And so there was always some kind of animal coming and going around the house when I was a kid. And I guess that really helped my love of animals. I didn't realize it at the time because I went through those years of teenagehood and young adulthood and did not seek out the farm life so much. But I always had a fondness for it. Fast forward, and Shannon and I were fairly newly married. The kids were very young. And I would say, I'm trying to think, I'm thinking Abram was maybe 3, maybe. So anyways, and Abram's my youngest, by the way. So he let me buy a milk goat because I had been begging for farm animals. We did not have a good setup. We did not have anything. I mean, like nothing. It was foolish, and I'm telling you from my standpoint now, don't do this, okay? I didn't know goats were social animals and needed more than one goat to be, happy. I didn't know that you didn't feed a goat just anything, because I believed the lie my whole life that goats will eat everything and anything and it doesn't matter. That's not necessarily true, y'all. Goats are wonderful creatures. They do eat a lot of different things, but they don't eat everything, and they don't need to eat everything. So anyhow, my first goat her name was Mammy. And Mammy was a dear friend of mine. I love that goat, but Buddy, she had an attitude. And she was not happy with the thought of me milking her. Even though the man that I bought her from said, yeah, she's a milk goat. I had no idea. I'm telling you, if anybody could have went into something blind, it was this girl right here. I had no clue what I was doing. But that's how I am. A lot of times I am a jump in with both feet kind of girl. So I jumped in and I learned a lot. I started learning a little bit about her. I started learning that she could kick the snot out of me when I went to milk her. I went out there, y'all. I went out there with a rope to tie her up, a quart jar, and that was pretty much it. I think maybe a rag to wipe her down. I milked what I could in that quart jar. I brought it in and I made a simple cheese out of it. I put that cheese in a lasagna bake the very next night, and I thought I had arrived as a homesteader. I was so proud of that cheese and that milk and that goat of ours. She was a character, like I said. She would often, the kids were just little bitty, so she would often, you know how goats will butt heads. Well, she didn't butt the kids, but she would stand up on her hind legs, and what we thought at the time was dancing. We said, Mammy dances with us, and she never once butted anybody, but she would get up on her hind legs and she would walk around, and the kids would stand there and they would dance with her, because that's what we thought she was doing. And she was, because like I said, she never tried to hurt anybody or ram anybody except me when I tried to milk her. She was a precious goat to us. Not long after that, someone called us, because I had, you know, if I had one goat, surely I was a goat person and I needed more. Someone called us and said, hey, we've got a mama that is not accepting her babies. You want them? And we became owners of 2 baby goats that were bottle babies. I learned very quickly about baby goats, that they needed warmth, and they needed food, and they needed shelter, because their temperature can drop very quickly and then they can become lifeless and you're thinking they're dead. And that happened to me with both of those goats. But we brought them back, but you know, they weren't too far gone. It was just they were a little cold, and when a baby goat gets cold, it will act lifeless. They ended up spending the night in our bathroom one night when it was very cold, and I fed them a bottle through there. And then we ended up, because it was going to be so cold for so many days in a row, the kids had a little playhouse, and we brought that playhouse, we put it on our porch, we filled it with straw, and the babies lived in there so that they would be protected. And that's the way we rolled for very, like 4 or 5 weeks. When they got a little bit bigger, they went out to live with Mammy. And sadly to say, the neighbors at that time had Great Danes, and they killed my baby goats, and they injured Mammy. And I thought Mammy was a goner. She was wounded, and I was very, very distraught. She recovered, but she wasn't exactly the same. She was out of milk. We didn't have a buck to breed her back to, so there was no milk anymore. And I just saw that that was not going to be good for her, so that's why I went ahead and dried her up. Now, I didn't know anything about drying up a goat either, so that was all brand new. But I dried her up, and she was okay for a little while. Well, not too long after that, yet another dog attack, and this time it did do her in. And I was grieved, because that was probably, I was not very attached necessarily to pets before, or to farm animals or anything like that. But I was attached to her. And in my mind, if you're going to have something on your home and in your, in your farm, it needs to be something that's going to help you to produce something for you. And she was, I thought was going to be our milk producer. Again, I was very naive going into it. I'm so grateful for the great information that's out there now, and for people that's willing to teach about goats and milk cows and all the things that weren't available, 15, 20 years ago, or that I didn't know 15, 20 years ago. So today, I'm a proud owner of Nubian goats again. I did not buy just one goat this time. I bought a goat, and she came with a friend that was that I borrowed, and that way she wouldn't be lonely. And little by little, we added to her herd, and then we eventually added a buck pen where I have a buck and a wether. And we now breed our goats each year in the fall. And I absolutely love it. I love to milk them. I love to visit with them. I love to play with the babies. I love everything about it. They're an absolute joy to me. They are a great fit for our home and our homestead because we're not set up for anything larger. I have 3 full-size does, and a doe is a female goat. And I have 1 yearling, which she will be bred this fall as well. And then I have right now, until I have a few sold already, but they're still with us. I have 7 babies, and 4 girls and 3 boys. And then I have a buck, which is an intact male goat, and I have a wether, which is a castrated male goat. So that's his buddy. All of our goats are gentle enough that my kids and my grandkids and everybody that comes by, I'm not too worried about them I don't worry about them getting hurt or trampled or, bucked or anything like that, because at the most, our baby goats like to jump on you. You'll see in a video of where I go out and tell them good morning, and they all want to hop on me because they want a bottle. But that's about as rough as it gets. And even still, that's not too bad. But they're just a good fit for us. And with proper management, they have absolutely delicious milk. We use our milk straight up to drink. I use our milk in soap making. I use our milk in cheese making. I also use our milk in like sweets making. And I have a recipe, and that's what I was just looking for before I started the video. I had a recipe on a goat milk caramel, like the chewy little caramel squares, and I haven't found it yet. But the recipe that I'm going to share with y'all today is for a type of Velveeta cheese, which is not Velveeta because I don't buy Velveeta, but it is a goat milk Velveeta, faux Velveeta. So that's going to be a fun one to share with y'all. It's great because it's creamy and it melts good, and it's not my basic and I'll say it wrong because I always do, chèvre recipe. It's a different type of cheese than that, but it's super tasty and it's good for melting and making dips and whatnot with. So you might want to try that out if you have goats. If you don't, you could find a local farm friend that has goats and maybe buy some milk and give this a try. But I just want to say really quickly that, like I said, I wanted dairy animals. And I was pretty bummed out that I couldn't have a cow. And it's not that I couldn't have a cow, but I tried to look at our place, and I like to see, I like to be sensible. I'm a big dreamer. I'm passionate about many things, and I have goals and aspirations, but I also want to be smart, and I want to be respectful of our land. I want to leave it better when we leave than when we got here. Our land is not ideal. It was, the government took a lot of our dirt out over the years and scraped it down to basically rock and limestone and sand. There's not very much good soil here. So one day I hope to have a pasture. It probably won't house milk cows though. It'll probably be for steers to raise for meat. That's a dream. We'll see whether that comes true or not. But anyways, so instead of getting all down and out and bummed because we don't have a good place for pasture or for grazing right now, I started thinking, what do we have room for? What could we do to make ourselves a little more sustainable and a little less dependent upon the store? And dairy is a big thing for us, very big. We eat a lot of dairy around our home, and so a way of providing dairy for my family was to have a dairy animal. And when You know, and I even went through, I went and looked at cows. You know, my whole plan there for a while was to put a cow on a cinder block, and let her graze my yard and everywhere around our yard, anywhere there was grass. But that was not a good life for a cow. We don't have enough grass or enough nice grass for a cow to be sustained on that. And it was not a smart move. And I could not make that. I couldn't justify my want with what reality really was. So, like I said, I started thinking about goats. And thankfully, I had a good friend who had beautiful goats. And I reached out to her and to another friend who had great goats. And they helped me get started. I bought Hazel and Mavis, and those were my two beginner goats. Hazel is still with me, and she is the queen of our herd. Mavis has moved on to another farm, but I love them. And since then, we've had more that's been born here and more that we've added. So like I said, I have 3 does in milk right now, and 7 babies that are up for sale. And some are already spoken for. But goats are just a wonderful thing, and they worked for us because they're not taxing to our land. I actually let them out sometimes to graze some of the overgrowth in other places. I have a fairly large paddock made for them. I don't have a rotation set up for them yet, which I would eventually like, but you do what you can with what you got, where you are right now. And this is where we are right now. So this large paddock they have, when the spring comes and the overgrowth is hanging, they are able to eat all the overgrowth. They do graze a little bit, but that's not their cup of tea. They're mainly browsers, which means they like to eat all the overgrowth and the trees, the branches and whatnot. They like to eat all those leaves. They love to eat different weeds that you might not want. The other day when I let Gracie and Hazel and Laverne out, they were all over the honeysuckles. They were eating it like crazy. They eat up poison ivy and poison oak. They eat a lot of different things that, you know, you might not want. They're great at clearing stuff. But like I said, that's something that you have to realize with goats. They will graze some, but they love browse better. So anyways, I'm going to share some videos with you of like some of our milkings, some of me playing with the babies, some videos of the babies playing on the rock that we've put out there in the pasture for them. And I just wanted to encourage you that if you are eager for dairy for your home, goats could be a great starting point for you if you're limited on space or access to great pasture land. As long as they have some browse and a place that you can give them hay. I do give our goats hay each day. We do give them a dairy ration, and especially now with the girls with so many babies on them and me milking too occasionally, we do feed them a supplemental, like extra feed, because any dairy animal, I don't care what you have, any dairy animal is going to need more feed during this time because they're expelling so much of their energy making the milk, whether it be the babies drinking it from them or whether you're milking it out from them. That's, it's a very important time to keep them in good feed. So I do give them extra feed with oats and beet pulp and a few sunflower seeds and alfalfa. So are they the cheapest route? No, not necessarily, because you do have to feed them. And they're not just, so often I think people think, oh, goats, you just throw them out in the field and let them go. They can eat a lot of browse, but they need special care too. One thing I learned about goats early on is that they need copper in their diet. They need minerals in their diet, because a lot of times if you've had goat milk that is funky, a lot of times it's because the minerals in that goat are off. If they don't have a proper diet and good minerals, their milk's going to taste wonky and strong and not so great. It should taste sweet and fresh and delicious. So lots to learn about goats, and I've rambled on long enough. Let's get to this goat milk Velveeta recipe, and let's make some together. All right, y'all. To start this recipe, you want a nice stock pot that's heavy, that's nice and heavy, that is very clean, because oftentimes when you're making cheese, you can have contamination, and that can lead to upset stomachs and whatnot. So I just cleaned my pot, and it's nice and dry now. And to this pot, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. I'm going to add my goat milk. And you need a gallon. Mine's a little bit less than a gallon, but it'll be fine. It's because I let little Rosemary nurse Gracie the other morning, and then I milked out a whole bottle after that. So normally with the babies on them and I pull them for a while, I get about a gallon or a little more each morning when I milk. But that's just because the babies are on them still quite a lot. If I wanted to be more aggressive and, like, you know, pull the babies completely and then just feed the baby bottles, but it's so nice being able to put the babies with them when I'm busy, pull them away when I need some milk. So it's really convenient right now to have the babies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare my other things. So I'm going to get out a colander. I'm going to get out a nice tea towel. Now it says you can use cheesecloth or butter muslin. I don't have those. I don't have good ones of either of those. So I just use a tea towel to strain. Then I'm going to get my other ingredients, which are, I'm going to look at my list here to make sure I don't forget anything. So I have my goat milk on the stove, and we're working to get it warmed up to 140. I have a thermometer. I am using citric acid, baking soda, salt, and a little bit of butter, and then some cheese powder, which is something you can get at Azure, or you can order it off Amazon, and I'll put a link. But it's basically just to give it a flavor, like a cheddar cheese flavor. You can go with cheddar. You can do white cheddar. I think there's a lot of different varieties, nacho cheddar even. But I'm pretty sure mine is just plain cheddar. So milk is going. I'm going to add, let me see. Let me make sure I'm right here. I'm going to pull out a little bit of milk in this because I forgot. To this milk, I'm going to go ahead and mix up my cheese powder. That way it's mixed together and it doesn't clump up when I just try to add the straight powder to the cheese. And then I'm going to get my citric acid in my water. And then that way, once the temperature comes up, I can go straight on to the next step. So this is going to work. I'll bring you back when it's ready. All right, y'all, so here we go. I've got a loaf pan that I've put plastic wrap in, and I'm going to get my olive oil spray and spray that. So I need to do that real quick. That way that it will, Velveeta is supposed to be like a loaf, But y'all, Velveeta is such garbage. You don't want to buy Velveeta. It's basically vegetable oil that's been congealed, and it's just terrible. So let's make it. To my half cup of water, we're going to add I believe it's 3 teaspoons of citric acid. So let me get my measuring spoon here. There we go. We're going to add that to the water. And it's just going to, that way it's dissolved before we add it into our milk. Okay. There's that. And then our milk that I pulled aside, we're going to put 4 tablespoons of cheddar cheese powder in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. And then I'll use a little fork over here and mix that together. Let's get this back up. I'm going to give this a stir, and I'm going to see what temperature we're at. I know we're still pretty low. If I had thought this morning, I should have put our milk straight into the pot rather than putting it in the freezer to chill it. We're at 84. So we got a little ways. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, while I'm waiting on this, I'm going to go wash up dishes, because as we know, clean as you go. Wanted to tell you, the whole loaf pan thing is, if you want to be able to slice it like you do with a Velveeta, it's kind of just that way because of the whole, to mimic Velveeta. So anyways, I plan, if I don't forget, I plan to go online and take a screenshot of the ingredients in the Velveeta, and then share the ingredients in this and say, look at the difference. And you'll see just how easy this is too. So anyways, if you want that whole log, block thing, that's why we're doing this. If you don't, you can put it straight into a bowl. If you want it smoother and more, spreadable, you can add more milk, or you can leave it just the way the recipe is written and make it like this. All right, we are at 140 degrees. So now I'm going to turn this down. I'm going to add our water with our citric acid in there. Stir that up one more time. And then add it to the milk. And we're going to stir this gently. And I'm going to try to turn you around so you can see. Okay. You can already see the curds are starting to break. Or, well, they're not actually breaking. They're starting to form. Excuse my misspeak. Okay. So now that we see that they are going to start forming, I've got the heat off, and I'm going to leave it and just let it set for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. Okay. I'm going to pour this over into our cheesecloth. Well, our muslin. And remember, I have a colander underneath, so it's going to catch the curds and not let them fall to the bottom of the pot. Now, you can hang this to drain, or they also say on the recipe that you can take the edges if you have time. I probably don't have time today. I'm probably just going to let it drain and hang. You take it, you get this right here, and you kind of roll it back and forth like this until the majority of the whey is released. That's coming out pretty good. Maybe I'll take the time. Sorry I can't get you a better view. If someone else was here, I would have them come up over me. I'm going to see if I can figure out a way for you to see. I'll use my other tripod. Okay, let's see if I can get this under here for you so you can see what's happening as I kind of roll it back and forth. See if I keep this opened. Forgive me for not being able to have a better setup. See how that's starting to form a ball? Sorry for the jerky lurky, guys. This is not really doing a great job of showing you, so I'm just going to move back on over here. I hope you were able to see something there. I just kind of wanted you to see that it was forming a bit of a ball as I let the whey drain out. Now, if you get this, if you leave this too wet, it's going to be a softer, more runny cheese. The drier you get, it's going to be a more solid. So just keep that in mind, depending on what you want. And always, if you get it too dry, you can add the milk back to it to reconstitute it, make it softer. So I'm just going to keep doing this for a few more minutes. And then we're going to add it to the pot and move on to our next step. Okay, so I'm going to add the curds back to our pot. I'm also going to add our baking soda, and you need about 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then you need a tablespoon of butter. We're going to turn this back on about medium heat and begin to stir. cheese may start to like rise and kind of puff from that baking soda. It's just a chemical reaction. No, it's very normal. Let me see if I can show you.
So as we begin to stir this all together, this is the curds, the butter, the baking soda, and the salt. You can see it's kind of puffing up, and then it's going to start melting down and becoming a big, cohesive, smooth cheese. And that's what we're looking for. And it will take a little bit, but just keep stirring. Don't let the bottom scorch. And we're going to need to add our cheese powder mixture back to this here in a moment.
Now remember earlier when I took the cheese powder and added it to a bit of our milk. So that's why it's kind of thick. Because that was 4 tablespoons of cheese powder per gallon. I'm just going to mix that in there. And that kind of gives it a little bit of a different color. Like Velveeta's super orange. This is not going to be very super orange. Maybe a light orange. Right now, everything is like really grainy looking. Let me see if I can switch you back. Okay, do you see how it's beginning to get a bit smoother? It's not there completely yet, but it's getting there. Right, I'm gonna let it cool out here, and then I'm gonna put it in the fridge. Let's see. Let's watch this. Hey, Rosemary. Rosemary. There you are. I know. Come on. Come on. Let's go get some milk. Come on. Let's get some milk. I know y'all are out here too. Come on. So the reason Miracle is the only baby in here with the does is because she was the only one that didn't get out today. She was a good girl. I'm still just not real sure where it is that they're finding a weak spot in the fence, but they get out, they come right back to the gate, and usually it's putting them right back in. It's just the getting them back in, and or putting them in the maternity suite, so that's all it is. It's not like it's hard. I just don't want them to get out and get hurt. Hello, Miracle. Thanks for getting dirt all over me. Oh, you gonna paw at the camera? If I can do this one-handed, I'm gonna show you guys something. So with the goats, you check on their health. She's probably gonna resist because I'm trying to do this one-handed, but you're gonna look at their eyelids. So you wanna pull down their eyelids and see that that eyelid is nice and pink. I'm not gonna be able to do it one-handed. I'll have to get someone else to come out and help me. Maybe we'll do a goat care 101 one day on a video rather than just try to do this and show y'all one-handed this evening. But that's a whole nother thing. I do a monthly checkup on my girls, the big girls. I do the boys every, I don't know, 3 to 6 months because they're just a lot less maintenance than my big girls. My big girls are my producers, my milk makers, so I keep a much more careful eye on them. Good morning, y'all. So it's the next day, and I just wanted to show you really quickly how the Velveeta looked after being in the fridge all night. So I pulled it out of our pan, and it's pretty firm and heated up to make like a queso, or melt it down for macaroni and cheese, or anything else that you might use a store-bought Velveeta for. What was our ingredients? Butter, milk, baking soda, citric acid, and salt, and the cheddar cheese powder. And that's an optional thing. You don't have to use it.
The last part of my video glitched, so I just wanted to say, if you're looking for a good melting cheese and you do own goats or use goat milk, this would be a great option. I hope you enjoyed the recipe and enjoyed our tour with our animals, and I'm so thankful you're here, and I hope you come back again. Bye-bye.